Since about 80% of divorces are filed by women against men who don't want the divorce, it's no surprise that most of my clients, who are men going through unwanted divorces, are skeptical or downright against the idea of dating or getting romantically involved with a woman ever again. Right? Why would they put themselves back into that position where they're going to be hurt again? Right? And if you feel like that too, then it's because you don't have all the facts that you need just yet. So right now, your brain might have one of these stories or all of these stories in mind, all of these explanations for why it's not safe for you to date or love again. Your brain might be saying things like women aren't capable of love, or women are only interested in money and status and they'll ditch you as soon as you lose either one or they find someone who has more. Right? Or you might be realizing that your ex was your best friend, somebody that you really cared about and trusted, and then she did this. Right now, she's someone you hardly recognize. So how could you ever trust the face that another woman presents to you? You might have the thought fueled here on YouTube that society and social media are poisoning the minds of women against men and against healthy relationships. Or your brain might just be telling you like, hey man, there aren't that many good women out there anymore. And if there are, they're probably not interested in me because guess what? There's a lot of competition and only a couple of good ones. And are any of these stories, any of these beliefs ringing true for you? Guys, all of these stories are missing an essential fact. Every single relationship problem that has ever existed boils down to just one single thing. One or both partners being in a fight or flight or freeze response. And if you're like, Rachel, what the heck are you talking about? Let me show you what I mean. Right? When we're young, men and women both, most people grow up learning certain lessons, either from childhood trauma or just from watching what your parents had to teach you about intimate love. Usually, people learn a couple of things. One, they learn that conflict is bad. It's especially bad in relationships. They learn that people can lie or can't be trusted, that people will hurt you if you let them get too close to you. Often we learn that our boundaries won't be respected unless we really fight for them. But the biggest lesson that most people grow up learning is this background knowledge, this sense that I'm not good enough. And if I let anyone find that out, especially my romantic partner, they're going to leave me. I'm going to be abandoned. Right? And so these lessons, if we learn any of these things as a child, we grow up into men and women who are afraid inside of our relationships, right? We feel unsafe a lot of the time around our partners. And if a human being feels unsafe, we go into a fight or flight or freeze response. We can't help it. It's automatic and it's unintentional. And so look what this does in relationships, right? We end up yelling and arguing. That's a fight response. Or maybe we avoid conflict and run away at the first sign of a problem. Right? That's a flight response. Maybe you or your ex-wife would withdraw and shut down in response to conflict. That's a freeze response. And the other option that often happens in relationships is anxiously seeking attention and validation from a partner who has withdrawn or is avoiding conflict. And that's actually called a fawn response. And it's just another way that human beings respond to feeling unsafe. But look back at your marriage. Was there yelling and arguing? Was there shutting down? Was there conflict avoidance? Right? Was there validation and attention seeking? If any of those things ever happened, that means that one or both of you didn't feel safe. Your nervous systems were in fight or flight. And I can tell you that a human being whose nervous system is calm and grounded, a human being who feels safe, doesn't act in these ways. They don't behave like that. Fight or flight is a really good thing to have. It's an effective response if you've got to get away from a lion, but it is kryptonite to healthy human relationships. This is actually really, really good news, you guys. In fact, this is the best news because guess what it means? It means that if you want to have better relationships that last, that are healthy, then all you have to do is learn how to effectively regulate your nervous system. And it works so well. In just a moment, I'm going to show you a couple examples of how powerful this is. But one of the coolest parts about it is when you learn how to get out of fight or flight, how to get out of it and stay out of it, even in a moment of conflict, it invites the people around you to come out of fight or flight too. It makes it easier for other people to self-regulate. Fight or flight is an escalating situation because if one of you goes into fight or flight, now you've started yelling or withdrawing, and guess what? Your behavior, your fight behavior or your flight behavior is pretty dangerous seeming to the other partner. So now they're feeling unsafe because you're yelling or you've totally withdrawn and are ignoring them. And now they don't feel safe. And so now they're going into a fight or flight, right? And so you can see how this just escalates in relationships, sometimes for years. But if one person can get out of fight or flight, it breaks that whole cycle and it helps the other person feel safe. And pretty soon you've got two calm, grounded people who are not in fight or flight. And guess what they can do? They can have calm, rational, reasonable conversations with each other. They can be empathetic and kind. They can stand in each other's shoes and they can problem solve together as partners. So I want to share two examples with you. These are two different men who worked with me in my Better Be Undivorced program. And what they did was they learned how to regulate their nervous systems. And so the first one is Bob. He was in his mid to late 30s when he got divorced, and his ex-wife, they had two little kids, and she left with his best friend. So there was just a lot of pain and betrayal there. And he says, last year, my life was in shambles, all of my dreams broken. My life is now great. And he shares that I now have an awesome relationship with an amazing new woman. I have shared all of my darkest actions and thoughts, and she accepts me. Sad to say this, but in the past few months, I think I've been closer with her than ever with my ex-wife. Closer with her in a few months than ever with the woman he was married to for 15 years. How is that possible? There's one difference. In this new relationship, Bob isn't in a fight or flight response all the time. That's it. He feels safe with this new partner because he has learned how to regulate his nervous system, how to get out of a fight or flight response. In his marriage, it doesn't matter that they were together for a long time, that they had kids together. Like, he didn't know how to regulate his nervous system, which means he was in fight or flight constantly throughout that whole marriage. And there is just no possibility of real closeness, intimacy, acceptance, love when we're in fight or flight all the time. Right? So here's Bob in a brand new relationship, and it is night and day from his marriage of 15 years because he has learned how to regulate his nervous system. And I won't read this whole story to you, but this is another client. This is a man who was married for 40 years, right? 4 decades to the same woman. And you can imagine how daunting dating probably seemed to him when it came time to get back out there. But not only did he start dating, he met a girl. This is from an email he shared with me, letting me know that one of the women he had gone out with was very different from the rest. And he's exploring that relationship further. And they went out and celebrated his 60th birthday with this weekend getaway. And he shares that so far there have been no red flags for either of us because when we have a question about what the other said, we bring it up openly right away. How do you get back out there, start dating, and then actually open up and begin connecting with somebody at 60 years old after 4 decades with the same woman and going through a divorce that you didn't want? Right? How do you do that? You do it by learning to regulate your nervous system. And the beautiful thing is that when you do, you start to have very, very different relationship experiences. And I see this happen again and again in my work as a divorce coach. When my clients start out, their poor nervous systems are just so distressed, right? They've been in this chronic fight or flight state, or they're just shut down and freeze in depression. And in those states, they can't even imagine putting themselves out there with a woman again. But as they learn to effectively regulate their own nervous systems, they find that their relationships are completely different, right? So they start dating, and over and over and over again, I feel more connected and secure than I ever did in my marriage. Greater intimacy, stronger connection, more affection, and less fear all become possible because of just one thing, right? Effective nervous system regulation. It transforms relationship dynamics. So at this point, you're probably asking the question, well, Rachel, how do I effectively regulate my nervous system? That is a topic that I cover in great depth in my free masterclass. So if you would like to get your nervous system calm, get out of fight or flight so that you can not only have healthy relationships, but feel better, right? Get out of the depression and hopelessness of freeze and out of the anger and anxiety of fight or flight, come with me into the free masterclass. I will show you the exact strategy that I use with my clients, like these two gentlemen whose stories I shared with you today, to help them get out of fight or flight, regulate their nervous systems, and move on with their lives post-divorce. All right, guys, I'll see you in the masterclass. Thanks for watching.